What if one of the funniest scenes in a beloved Hollywood comedy had a completely different story behind the cameras? For years, audiences watched Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock crash into each other in The Proposal and laughed at the chaos. It looked spontaneous, ridiculous, and perfectly timed. But behind that few seconds of comedy was a scene that reportedly took days to shoot, required a closed set, protective coverings, repeated choreography, and eventually left Sandra and Ryan stuck in an awkward position while the director watched from behind the monitors. And then there's the part that makes this story even more fascinating. Years later, Sandra herself described what happened, and Ryan eventually joked publicly about how the scene might have gone very differently with modern safeguards. Was it simply an incredibly awkward accident during a complicated stunt? Or is there more to the story than the final movie ever showed? Today, Amelia Brown is breaking down the original clips, the later revelations, and the questions that still surround one of the most talked about moments from The Proposal. Welcome back to Amelia Brown. Quick disclaimer before we start. Allegedly, reportedly, sources say insiders reveal you know the language by now. But I need you fully paying attention for this one, because what looked like a hilarious movie blooper may have been far more uncomfortable behind the cameras. We're talking about Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock, a famous collision scene, a closed set, an unexpected position that left the actors unable to immediately move, a director suddenly drawing attention to what the camera had captured, and years later, Sandra's own account bringing the entire moment back into the spotlight. Then Ryan added his own joke about intimacy coordinators, HR, and clothing, giving fans yet another reason to revisit what happened. So let's go clip by clip, because once you know the full timeline, that famous scene becomes a lot harder to watch the same way.
And you've got a scene with Sandra Bullock in here. I understand it took, what, a week to film?
It was 3 days. 3 days. I requested a solid week.
Yeah, you kept saying you didn't think you had it right?
But yeah, no one listens to me ever. So, but yeah, we shot the scene for 3 days.
But you've never seen her.
It was now I've seen just about everything. I mean, you know, excluding her doctor and husband, I'm third in line.
Let's start with the moment everyone remembers. Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock's characters collide while they're both undressed, creating one of the most ridiculous visual jokes in the movie. On screen, it lasts only a moment, but that tiny moment was apparently anything but simple to film. The actors had to perform a physical collision at speed, land in exactly the right position, make the audience believe it was accidental, and still maintain enough control to protect themselves. According to the story surrounding the production, the scene took multiple days and numerous attempts to get right, and that immediately raises the first question. Why did such a short comedy moment require so much work? Because the scene wasn't just another joke. The entire comedy depended on the chemistry between these two characters. If the collision looked fake, the joke failed. If the actors moved too slowly, the humor disappeared. If they landed incorrectly, the camera angle wouldn't work. Everything had to happen almost simultaneously. The audience was supposed to see two people collide, panic, and scramble away. Simple, right? Not exactly.
I will do this scene only if I can be humiliated and funny. You will not see me trying to attempt being in real life or on screen. So it's like, you just go, there's no point. There's just no point in it.
Sandra Bullock had apparently established one important condition before doing the scene. If she was going to appear exposed and vulnerable, she wanted the moment to be funny rather than presented as some glamorous or seductive sequence. That distinction is huge. She wasn't trying to make the scene sexy. The entire point was embarrassment, physical comedy, and the sheer absurdity of two people suddenly finding themselves in an impossible situation. And that decision tells us something about how Sandra approached the scene. She understood that audiences would be looking at her in an extremely vulnerable situation, so the comedy had to control the tone. The scene needed to make viewers laugh at the character's embarrassment, rather than turn the moment into something uncomfortable. But there was another factor that made Sandra willing to take on a scene this awkward. She already knew the man working opposite her.
Were there any body doubles? Were there anything covering the privates? Let's go into detail and please go slow.
Well, we'll start with the it's 3 days of shooting. Basically, this one little scene of us start. And if I didn't know Sandra Bullock completely before, I do now. I know her in ways that Jesse James would turn me into some sort of fine curd cottage cheese-like pudding, if he knew.
Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock weren't strangers thrown together for the first time on a movie set. They had known each other for years, and that friendship became an important part of their on-screen chemistry. In interviews, Ryan spoke warmly about their history and described how unusual it was to work with someone whose personality he already understood. And that's where this story gets complicated. Trust can make an uncomfortable scene easier to perform. When you're working with someone you know, you're less likely to feel like you're surrounded by complete strangers. You already understand their humor, their personality, and their boundaries. The competitor's narrative takes that trust and turns it into the central mystery of the entire incident, suggesting that Sandra's familiarity with Ryan may have lowered her defenses. But we have to make one distinction very clear. The source material supports the existence of the friendship and the awkward filming experience. The stronger claim that Ryan deliberately exploited that trust is an interpretation pushed by the narration, not something the available clips conclusively establish. And that distinction becomes important later.
It's awkward for the first couple of hours, and then you sort of, what becomes even more absurd is that you sort of forget that you're like, you know, you're around all these people. I mean, there's nothing like intimate about it. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, not only are you're doing a stunt as well. It's like expertly lit Cirque du Soleil.
Because filming this scene was apparently far less glamorous than the finished movie makes it look. Imagine trying to perform a physical stunt while cameras, lights, crew members, sound equipment, and directors are all around you. Now add the fact that the actors are trying to maintain modesty while moving quickly and falling to the ground. Suddenly, the funniest scene in the movie becomes a technical nightmare. Ryan himself described the experience as awkward at first. But after a while, the absurdity of the production environment apparently took over. This wasn't an intimate atmosphere in the traditional sense. It was a workplace filled with people concentrating on camera angles, lighting, choreography, and timing. And that's exactly why the next detail matters.
So we had a closed set, which means no one's allowed to be on there, just hair and makeup come in and fluff and hide. And, you know, Ryan and I have these flesh-colored things stuck to our privates.
The production used a closed set for the sensitive scene. That means the number of people inside was supposed to be limited to those who were actually necessary. Ryan and Sandra also had protective coverings, while Sandra's hair was positioned to provide additional coverage. On paper, everything sounds controlled. But there's a difference between protecting two actors while they're standing still and protecting them while they're running toward each other, colliding, falling, and trying to separate at exactly the right moment. One wrong movement could completely change the shot. One awkward landing could create a problem nobody expected. And that's exactly what appears to have happened.
For most of this movie.
It's
a long stretch.
I'm not for most of this. Emotionally.
This is the moment where the entire story takes a sharp turn. The collision happens, but instead of instantly separating, the actors end up in an awkward position on the floor. Sandra's momentum carries her onto Ryan, while his knees are raised beneath her. Suddenly, neither person can simply jump up and walk away and remember what the scene was supposed to look like. Collision, shock, immediate separation. Instead, they were stuck. For the audience, that moment became comedy. But from inside the scene, Sandra later described essentially waiting for the director to call cut while remaining in that uncomfortable position. This is the part that the dramatic retelling treats as the big gotcha moment. It argues that Ryan's position wasn't accidental, and that he somehow used the choreography to create an opportunity. But that's where we need to be careful. The physical position is real according to Sandra's later account. The intention behind it is not something the clip itself proves. Still, the situation was awkward enough that what happened next became unforgettable.
We couldn't really move. And then I hear Ann Fletcher from the darkness go, "Rad, we can see her." And I'm like, oh God, because you want to look down, like, don't look down, don't look down. And you're like, should I help? Is there something no, we're not helping.
And Fletcher, the director, was watching the scene through the monitors. And then her voice came from the darkness. She noticed something the camera had captured and called it out. For Sandra, this was apparently the moment the entire situation became even more uncomfortable. She didn't want to look down. She knew exactly why the director was speaking, and suddenly the people around them were aware of what had happened too. Think about that for a second. You're already in an extremely vulnerable position. You're waiting for someone to yell cut. You can't easily move. and then the director announces what the camera has captured. Whatever the original intention of the scene was, the atmosphere had clearly changed.
Look worse.
Oh, Sandra Bullock. She's good. Oh, God, I love that woman.
Sandra later recalled how uncomfortable that moment felt. Instead of quietly handling the issue, the director's announcement made everyone aware of it. Crew members reacted, and attention suddenly shifted away from the performance and toward the unexpected situation on the floor. Sandra's reaction is particularly revealing, not because it proves any accusation against Ryan, but because it shows how embarrassing the situation became for her. She later suggested that there was a better way the information could have been communicated. And that's an important detail, because when Hollywood retells embarrassing moments years later, they often become funny stories. The audience laughs, the actors joke about them, the press turns them into memorable anecdotes. But the person experiencing the embarrassment may remember something completely different.
Losing her life.
I have now seen you.
And I'm so sorry about that.
I have seen you.
Able to sleep afterwards?
Why
are you looking down?
It's now my screensaver.
Why did you look down
I
when
was
you said
looking at
that?
my notes.
Not your notes are not over
no,
here.
they were right there.
That would be this.
They
You
were
went
right
like that.
there. I didn't go like this. I went like this.
I'm just saying.
Now let's zoom out for a moment, because there was much more pressure surrounding this production than the finished comedy lets you realize. The proposal wasn't a low-budget experiment. It was a major studio movie with a substantial production behind it, hundreds of people working on everything from lighting to set design, and enormous expectations surrounding its two leads. Sandra Bullock was carrying the movie. Ryan Reynolds was playing the male lead and building his reputation as a major Hollywood star. And the chemistry between them wasn't optional. It was the engine of the entire movie. That's why a difficult scene couldn't simply be abandoned because it was uncomfortable. The crew had schedules. The studio had money invested. The actors had performances to deliver. And the director needed the shot to work. So when this particular scene went wrong, it wasn't just two actors dealing with an awkward moment. The entire production had to absorb the consequences.
Tense.
Anne's voice booming that, not gently, but as loud as you possibly can. And everyone in the darkness spun around to see if they could find a monitor. I was like, Anne, there's a way to present that information.
And according to Sandra's later description, the director's reaction didn't exactly make things easier. Her recollection emphasizes how loudly the issue was announced, and how quickly everyone nearby became aware of what was happening. What had started as a carefully controlled scene suddenly became something the crew couldn't ignore. Sandra's frustration appears to have been connected not just to the physical awkwardness, but also to how the information was delivered. That's an important distinction. The viral version of the story wants you to believe this was some perfectly calculated scheme. But the first-hand account gives us something more nuanced. A difficult scene, an unexpected physical position, an embarrassing moment, and a production team trying to deal with it in real time. Sometimes the real story is messy enough without adding a conspiracy to it.
Panic.
Ryan was just he was so cool. He's unflappable. He's absolutely unflappable.
Then there's Ryan's reaction. The competitor's script places enormous importance on the fact that Ryan appeared calm and confident during the incident. The narration interprets that calmness as evidence that he knew exactly what was happening and wasn't surprised. But is calmness really proof of intention? Not necessarily. Actors can react differently under pressure. Some people panic. Some people joke. Some stay completely composed because they're trying to get through an awkward situation without making it worse. Still, the contrast is interesting. Sandra later described being uncomfortable and deliberately avoiding looking down. Ryan, meanwhile, became associated with the story as the guy who apparently remained unfazed. And that contrast is exactly what keeps this anecdote alive years later. So, does knowing what happened behind the cameras change the way you see that famous proposal scene? Maybe it does. Maybe now, when Ryan and Sandra collide on screen, you won't just see the punchline. You'll remember the days of choreography, the closed set, the awkward landing, Sandra waiting for the director to call cut, and the years later joke that brought everything back. But here's the question I want you to think about. Was this simply one of Hollywood's most awkward accidents? Or did the original scene deserve more boundaries than it received? The evidence gives us pieces of the puzzle, but it doesn't give us every answer. And maybe that's why this story refuses to disappear. Because sometimes the most controversial part of a movie isn't the scene written in the script. It's what happens when the cameras keep rolling. This is Amelia Brown. If you watched that scene before, you probably laughed. After hearing the full story, would you still laugh the same way?